because we want our products, which are produced here, to be transformed here for Burkina Faso. We don't want to be importers of finished products, but exporters of finished products. This is our vision. This is why we have supported it. In a surprising turn of events, the President of the Transition and Head of State, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, recently inaugurated a highly anticipated Agence Delhi International Prod Industries, known as ADI Prod Industries SA Industrial Complex. Spanning across 10 hectares in the industrial zone B of Bobo-Dioulasso, this innovative complex specializes in the production and distribution of edible oil and its assorted products. This industrial complex is dedicated to the production and marketing of raw and refined shea butter, as well as refined edible oil based on oilseeds.
The day Traoré drew the line. What happens when a landlocked nation tells global oil giants, "You don't own us anymore"? Burkina Faso just did, and it's sending shockwaves through Africa and beyond. In a bold move that defied decades of dependency and manipulation, President Ibrahim Traoré has officially launched Burkina Faso's first fully state-controlled oil storage and distribution infrastructure. This isn't just a ribbon-cutting ceremony, it's a revolutionary declaration. No more waiting for fuel ships to dock in foreign ports. No more stockpiling crises caused by decisions made in Paris, Brussels, or Washington. And absolutely no more energy blackmail from the so-called development partners. Let's rewind for a moment. For years, Burkina Faso, like many African countries, has faced a bitter paradox. The people dig the gold, grow the cotton, and now fight for sovereignty, yet they have no control over the lifeblood of modern economies, energy. Nearly all of Burkina Faso's refined oil products, diesel, petrol, kerosene, were previously imported through foreign intermediaries. And every month, ordinary citizens bore the cost. Truckers in Ouagadougou used to line up for hours, sometimes days, waiting for tankers that might not arrive. Families in Fata and Gourma rationed cooking fuel like medicine. Power stations ran dangerously close to shutdown, all because the country lacked one critical thing: strategic storage, the kind that gives you leverage, that gives you independence. Until now. In a dusty clearing just outside Bobo-Dioulasso, where the air once carried the stench of frustration and imported fumes, a vast new oil depot now rises from the earth. Not owned by Total, not managed by Shell, not supervised by the IMF, but designed, built, and operated by the Burkinabe state, with help from engineers and partners in countries that don't have colonial baggage to unpack. President Traoré's tone during the inauguration said it all. We will no longer be controlled by the faucet hands of others. From today, our people will decide how our fuel flows. It's a slap in the face to an old system, and a lifeline for a new one. This oil storage revolution didn't happen overnight. It's part of a bigger national strategy, one that's been quietly in motion since Traoré and his Revolutionary Council began shaking off foreign military bases and rejecting economic dictates from ECOWAS and France. The same Burkina Faso that recently exited the Western-dominated G5 Sahel framework and has started looking inward and eastward for real allies. But why does this oil move such a big deal? Because oil is more than energy. It's control. It's how foreign powers have long dictated which trucks run, which generators work, and ultimately, which governments stay in power. Remember when fuel subsidies were slashed in Nigeria, leading to nationwide strikes? Or when Ghana's debt crisis became a tool for IMF-backed energy reform that left locals paying more for electricity than some Europeans? Burkina Faso is watching and refusing to play the same game. By taking control of its own reserves, Burkina Faso is doing more than filling tanks. It's filling a power vacuum and sending a signal to every other African nation trapped in the vicious cycle of import dependence and foreign debt. Let's be clear, this move comes with risks. Managing petroleum infrastructure isn't just about pouring liquid into tanks. It requires logistics, maintenance, distribution channels, and, most dangerously, resisting sabotage from the same interests that profit from chaos. And you better believe those interests are watching. Already, quiet grumblings are emerging from international observers. Whispers of mismanagement concerns, calls for regional cooperation, and thinly veiled threats of economic sanctions cloaked in diplomatic language. We've seen this movie before, but Traoré seems unfazed. The only sanction we recognize is from our people, he said during the launch, and they have sanctioned us to take back control. He's not alone. In recent months, Mali and Niger have expressed interest in co-developing a regional fuel storage and pipeline network linking landlocked Sahel states in a shared energy grid that cuts out the coastal bottlenecks and foreign choke points. Sources close to the transitional government confirm that discrete meetings have already taken place in Ouagadougou. Not with Western oil firms, but with partners from Russia, Iran, and even Venezuela, countries that understand what it means to be sanctioned, isolated, yet self-reliant. This isn't about forming new puppet strings, it's about cutting old ones. And for Burkina Faso, this oil storage project might just be the first domino. But it's not just about geopolitics, it's about real people. Like Mariam, a widowed food seller who used to sleep in line at the petrol station to fill her tiny kerosene stove. Or Ibrahim, a mechanic whose entire garage could shut down if a delivery was delayed by even a day. These people aren't thinking about global trade routes, they're thinking about survival. And for them, this revolution isn't abstract, it's immediate. Burkina Faso is proving that sovereignty doesn't start with speeches. It starts with steel tanks, legal ownership, and the ability to say no when everyone expects you to say yes. As the sun set over the new depot, the national flag waved not just in celebration, but in defiance. A small country, once dismissed as a forgotten piece of French Africa, is now redrawing the map of who controls what, and how far that control reaches. In the next part, we'll dive into the secret negotiations, the underground resistance to this new system, and how Burkina Faso's oil revolution is threatening the balance of power across West Africa. But before we continue, what do you think about this bold move by Traoré? Will other African nations follow? Or is Burkina Faso taking a dangerous gamble? Drop your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for the next part, and don't forget to like and share this video if it opens your eyes.
When the massive gas pipeline project took center stage as Captain Ibrahim Traoré hosted John Dramani Mahama at the Kuluba Palace, igniting a transformative alliance between Ghana and Burkina Faso. It had been brewing for a while now. People were seeing Ghana and Burkina Faso becoming a united front, but now it's here. This working visit began with a private meeting, expanding to delegations, where the pipeline emerged as a flagship initiative. Mahama, in a press briefing, underscored that Ghana and Burkina Faso's geographic and historic unity fueled this project, framing his trip as an African neighborly tradition. This summit marks the pipeline's ascent as a catalyst for 53 million citizens, uniting Ghana's coastal gas fields with Burkina Faso's inland needs.
When Burkina Faso broke ground on its national oil storage project, most analysts dismissed it as symbolic, another populist gesture in a season of West African shakeups. But they weren't paying attention. Because what followed next was not just revolutionary, it was strategic, calculated, and for some regional powers, terrifying. Behind closed doors, in high-level strategy rooms in Ouagadougou, something bigger was brewing. A plan not just to store oil, but to move it, share it, and own it together with neighboring countries, without Western oversight. That plan? A Sahelian pipeline network, a land-based fuel transport system designed to link Burkina Faso with Mali and Niger, all three now under military-led governments, all three rejecting the dominance of ECOWAS, France, and US energy diplomacy. Together, these nations form what some are now calling the new axis of African energy independence. And make no mistake, this plan is not theoretical. Engineering blueprints exist. Geological surveys have been completed. And according to senior government insiders, initial groundwork in select corridors is already underway. Here's how it works. Instead of relying on ports in Togo or Côte d'Ivoire to import refined fuel, the network would allow oil shipments, whether from Russian, Venezuelan, or even domestic refining sources, to be stored and transported inland via secured routes controlled entirely by local military forces and cooperative civilian institutions. Fuel trucks would be replaced by pipelines, colonial choke points would be bypassed, and guess who's not invited? Multinational oil companies, World Bank loan officers, and ECOWAS. This has triggered full-blown alarms in capitals that once called the shots. In Abuja, for instance, a series of emergency meetings were held after intelligence reports revealed just how far Burkina Faso's oil ambitions had gone. Nigerian policymakers, already struggling with domestic fuel protests and refinery challenges, suddenly realized, if their neighbors go fully independent, they lose a major leverage point in regional politics and billions in fuel trade revenue. An insider in Nigeria's Ministry of Petroleum Resources reportedly described the pipeline project as an existential threat to Nigeria's energy diplomacy. Why? Because for decades, countries like Burkina Faso and Niger depended on Nigeria's Dangote refinery project, or its crude oil exports, to meet basic energy needs. Nigeria called itself the engine of West Africa, but in truth it played the role of the gas station owner with the only key. Now that key is being copied. In Côte d'Ivoire, similar tremors are felt. Their port in Abidjan has been the main entry point for fuel going into the Sahel. Port taxes, customs duties, and shipping arrangements have made millions of them. A Burkina-Mali-Niger pipeline would cut them out entirely. And let's not forget France, the silent player with everything to lose. For decades, Total Energies maintained a strategic grip on fuel infrastructure across Francophone Africa. Fuel shortages were rarely just logistical, they were often political tools. Approve this loan, accept this military base, privatize that industry, or your diesel shipments will mysteriously be delayed. Now, that leverage is slipping. French diplomats have made thinly veiled statements urging dialogue on energy cooperation. But Traoré and his allies aren't listening to press releases. They're listening to their people, who have suffered decades of blackouts, rationing, and price shocks, while Western-backed elites lived on imported privileges. And what about the people? Let's zoom in on Dori, a northern Burkinabe town long forgotten by central planning, yet vital in the region's energy logistics due to its location near the Niger border. Since the word of the pipeline broke, quiet excitement has taken hold. Local welders, truck mechanics, and metal fabricators have started organizing cooperatives, anticipating the employment boom that this project could bring. One elder told reporters, "We used to wait for fuel to come to us, now we may be the ones sending it out." But excitement isn't the only mood on the ground. There's also fear. Fear of sabotage, fear of sanctions. Fear of what happens when global players who profit from Africa's dependence decide to fight back. And signs of pushback are already emerging. Last month, a mysterious fire broke out near one of the storage depots under construction, officially ruled out an accident. Unofficially, the government suspects foul play. There are also cyber attacks reportedly targeting communication channels between the ministries of energy in Mali and Burkina Faso. And diplomatic pressure, quiet threats of aid withdrawal, travel bans, and media smear campaigns targeting the so-called military juntas. But if the aim was to intimidate, it backfired. Sources confirmed that after the suspected sabotage, Traoré held an emergency meeting with Mali's Assimi Goïta and Niger's Abdourahmane Takiana. The result? A fast-tracked joint Sahel Energy Council, with plans to coordinate energy security protocols, pool technical expertise, and create a single negotiating bloc for future fuel contracts. This isn't just bold, it's historic. Africa has long had natural resources. What it lacked was unity, infrastructure, and the political courage to challenge the status quo. Now, for the first time in generations, three nations are building something not just for themselves, but with each other, and without colonial supervision. But the path ahead isn't smooth. We'll explore the geopolitical domino effect, how ECOWAS, the African Union, and even China is reacting to this oil revolution, and what's at stake if Burkina Faso's gamble succeeds. Because if it does, this isn't just a pipeline, it's a fuse. Before we continue, we want to hear from you. Is this the start of Africa's great energy independence? Or is the region stepping into a dangerous confrontation with global powers? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like, share, and don't forget to subscribe, because everything comes together. Let's not pretend the world is watching Burkina Faso's oil revolution with curiosity alone. What's happening now in the heart of West Africa is not a minor infrastructure upgrade. It's a geopolitical earthquake. And the aftershocks are already rattling power corridors from Brussels to Beijing. When a small, landlocked nation refuses to bow, when it builds oil tanks with its own hands, lays pipelines with its neighbors, and declares that no foreign nation will dictate its energy future, it threatens more than just supply chains. It threatens a narrative that says Africa can't survive without the West. Independence means isolation. That revolution leads to ruin. Burkina Faso is rewriting that script. And global powers don't like rewrites they didn't authorize. Let's start with ECOWAS, the once respected regional body that now finds itself awkwardly out of tune with the mood of the Sahel. The oil project has exposed a painful truth. ECOWAS isn't just ineffective, it's irrelevant to the very countries it claims to represent. Since the pipeline alliance between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger took form, ECOWAS has scrambled to regain control. Leaks from diplomatic cables reveal that high-ranking officials in Abuja and Accra are pushing for economic pressure measures, including threats to suspend cross-border trade, restrict currency swaps, and block energy equipment imports to uncooperative members. But here's the problem. The country's ECOWAS wants to punish and don't rely on them anymore. Burkina Faso has found new friends: Russia, Iran, Venezuela, even Turkey, nations who, whether for moral or opportunistic reasons, are willing to supply refined oil, technical know-how, and military protection without demanding Western-style political compliance in return. In Beijing, the reaction is more complex. China has been quietly investing in energy corridors across Africa for over a decade. So far, it has stayed neutral in the Sahel crisis. But behind the scenes, Chinese firms have been courting Burkina Faso's energy ministry, offering to supply industrial-grade pipe materials, advanced monitoring systems, and even help finance an oil refinery in the town of Koudougou. In other words, while Europe is scolding, China is bidding. France, on the other hand, is losing patience and losing face. After being kicked out militarily, diplomatically sidelined, and economically displaced, Paris is watching one of its last pillars of influence crumble. The French media is already spinning narratives of instability, mismanagement, and radical nationalism, painting Traoré as reckless and unfit. But on the ground, the results speak louder than propaganda. Fuel queues are shrinking, prices have stabilized, local contractors and welders are working, and the people, the real people, finally feel like someone's building a system for them, not for export markets or elite pockets. Take the story of Musa, a young engineer who once had to migrate to Ghana just to find work in the energy sector. Now he's back in Ouagadougou, managing a crew of 40 on a pipeline construction site. He says, "For the first time, I'm not just working a job, I'm building a future my country owns." Or Aisha, a fuel vendor in Banfora who used to worry every month whether her barrels would arrive. Now she's part of a local fuel distribution cooperative supported by the new state storage facilities. Her income has doubled. Her children eat it every day. These aren't statistics. These are lives transformed by the audacity to take control of the environment. And yet, the stakes are higher than ever. According to regional analysts, intelligence intercepts suggest that foreign security contractors, yes, mercenaries, have been spotted in border regions. Whispers of sabotage plots, drone surveillance, and cyber intrusions are growing louder. The revolution is gaining traction, and that means it's becoming a target. In response, the Burkina government has quietly activated Operation Sécurité Noire, a joint military energy protection strategy developed with input from Malian and Nigerian forces. Mobile defense units now patrol the critical pipeline zones, drone jammers have been installed around the depots, and all foreign contractors undergo deep background checks. In short, Burkina Faso is not just building oil tanks, it's building sovereignty with security. But there's more. In what could be the most disruptive phase yet, President Traoré is reportedly drafting legislation to introduce a Sahelian energy exchange, a digital platform where member nations can trade oil, gas, and even renewable energy resources using local currencies, or possibly a gold-backed Sahel coin. If this happens, it would be a direct threat to the CFA franc, the West African currency controlled from Paris. It would also reduce dollar dependency, the same way BRICS nations are experimenting with de-dollarization strategies. And that's what terrifies the West, not the pipelines, not the storage tanks, but the idea, the belief that Africa can be built without permission. Of course, it won't be easy. Mistakes will be made. Corruption will try to creep in. Powerful enemies will attempt to sabotage from within. But the line has been drawn. The tankers are rolling, and the people are watching, this time with eyes wide open. The old world order worked if Africans believed they couldn't change it. Now that they know they can, all bets are off. Burkina Faso's oil storage revolution may have started with a fuel crisis, but it ends with something far more powerful, the rebirth of dignity. And if the rest of the continent listens closely, they just might hear the roar of freedom flowing through those new pipes. What's your take? Will Burkina Faso's bold energy independence reshape Africa's future? Or will the pressure from global powers crush the movement before it matures? Let us know in the comments. And if this story gave you hope, insight, or just something to think about, please like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on the next chapter of Africa's awakening.
For more information and for more news on the happenings in the political sector and the world globally, Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more updates.